Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please confirm once you can see my screen.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so today we'll see about the properties. Okay, properties. In our yesterday session, we just listed out some points regarding the properties. So document property, we already discussed this when we are learning about the disk implementation. Okay, it completely handles the metadata information, and not only for the documents that we are getting metadata information of the documents, like size of the document and name of the document, and from which directory we are picking that particular document. Along with that, we can handle the metadata information of the shapes also. We can see that going forward. And apart from that, these three properties are very important, because if you go for any interview, they will stress points on these properties. So first one is DDP, dynamic document property. So it is a document level property. Okay, we can't persist this property. It is not a component. Okay, this property, dynamic document property, is not a component. We can't persist this property, and this is a document level property. And DBP, it is a process level property. We can persist this property, and it is not a component. These two properties are not components. And this is document. The name itself says dynamic document. This is dynamic process. That means it is a process level property. And we can persist this property. Persisting is nothing but storing somewhere and retrieving that particular data in the next execution. Previous executions values retrieving in the next execution. Okay, that is what we call it as persisting. Okay, so here process property, it is a account level property, and it is a component. It is a component, and we can persist this property. Okay, so I'll just explain these things, okay, by showing here. So this is the message. This is the same message what we have seen, XML message. Let me set, let me use set property shape. Okay, I just want to set the properties for DDP, DPP, and PP. Okay, so DDP, dynamic document property, DDP. I'll just name it as DDP, and the value that I want to assign for this property. You know, right? When we are discussing about the document property, I told you properties to set and parameters. What is properties to set and what is parameters? Properties to set is nothing but we are setting dynamic document property. And make sure when you are mentioning this particular property name, okay, you just need to follow the same thing while you are retrieving or while you are calling this property. Okay, when you are defining this property, you are just mentioned here as DDP, and when you are calling this property, you just need to use the same name. Okay, and it is a case sensitive. Okay, please make sure of that. So, and what is the value that we are going to assign that? We are going to assign it a value, profile element. What is the incoming profile? XML. Okay, contact profile and ID. I just want to catch the ID. Okay, I just want to catch the ID from the incoming profile, incoming data. Okay, from the incoming document, I want to catch the ID. Let me take dynamic process property, DPP. Now I am defining DPP value. And what is the value that I want to assign? Profile element, XML, contact profile, and ID. Okay, and finally pp. Let me define process property. I told you process property is a component. That's why see here it is asking to create a new process property. Okay, let me use a pp over here. There is a flexibility to assign multiple process property instances over here. You can define multiple instances. See here, likewise you can define. Okay, so for now I am just defining only one, that is pp. Save, save and close. Okay, the value that I want to assign is profile element xml contact profile and id. Okay, I just defined three values, three properties. Okay, I defined three properties over here, and I just want to catch those properties. Okay, so where you can catch, I can use a message shape to catch those properties. Okay, I can use a message shape to catch those properties and stop it, to stop the execution. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm just getting a message. Instead of having a local atom, I just used a message. Why I used a message? Because when I'm using a local atom, I need to have a local atom or local runtime engine. But in this laptop, I don't have a local atom. So I'm just using a message to uh, run the process with some payload. And here I am just defining three properties from the incoming data. I am just defining those values, and I just want to retrieve those values in order to see what is the value that is stored in that property. I want to see the value that is stored in each and every property. That's why I'm just using this message. Okay, first one is dynamic document property. Dynamic document property. Okay, variable one. This is the variable one. You just need to define that variable one over here. Okay, and next one, next one, dynamic process property. And you need to define this variable in the below variable section. Last one is process property. Okay, so we have dynamic document property, dynamic process property, and process property. So you just define three variables. Okay, this is the static content. The highlighted one is the static content, and this is the dynamic content. Okay, and what is the variable for one? It is, there is no separate dynamic document property you will observe over here. So what you need to do, just go with document property, and when you are choosing, you will find, when you are choosing property type, you will find dynamic document property. Okay, so DDP. Okay, next DPP. You will find direct dynamic process property, DPP. And the third variable is process property variable. Go with process property, and here it will ask for the, you just need to choose the one which you created, and this is the one. Okay, so save. So let me test this. Okay, so what is happening here, we are getting a message and you just stored that message, and here you are calling those values. Okay, the values that are stored over here, and those values we are calling here in this message, and we will see the resultant, how the values has been stored and what are the values that we are retrieving, that we are getting. Okay, so see here, dynamic document property value is 10, dynamic process property value is 10, and process property value is also 10. Okay, so I told you dynamic document property is a document level property. Dynamic process property is a process level property, and this is an account level property. But why we are getting same value here? The reason for that is you are getting a single message. You are getting a single message which contains 3 documents. So when we are setting the values for the properties with a single document which contains multiple records, okay, if you are if you are defining the properties when with the if you are defining the properties with single document which contains multiple records, then they only consider the first record, because this is a single document which contains multiple records, so they won't go to the next records. They only check for the first record, and they will catch the value what we are having in the first record. Okay, so when we are sending any record to the set property shape here, you just need to make sure each and every document contains a single record. If you are not sending it like that, set properties won't work as expected. So you just need to split this record with each and every record as you just need to split this document with each and every record as a separate document. Okay, in order to see the exact functionality, how they are behaving. So what you need to do, you need to split this document. In order to split this document, you need to use where is that? You need to use data process. Okay, so data process is the shape which contains multiple processing steps. See here, it contains decode, encode, combine documents, custom scripting, search array plays. You will have all these implementations. Okay, so but for now we are taking split documents. We are splitting. What is the profile type? XML is the profile. And what is the profile? Choose the profile from here. And when you are splitting any record, when you are splitting any document, you need to split it based on the array element. Here the array is contact. Contact is the repeating one, right? We are having multiple contacts. So I just want to split each and every document as a single record or a single contact. Now connect this over here and connect it like this. Save, test it. Okay, so see now. See here now, before going there, how many records that we are having? We are getting a single record from the source message. Okay, we are getting a single document which contains 3 records. Ravi is the one record, Snehit and Divya. Okay, and after that you can see so this is the first record. Okay, Ravi. And second record. So each and every record has been splitted. Now see the resultant for the first record. Okay, see what is the dynamic document property value? 10. I told you it is a document level property. That's why it is catching the current documents ID, what we have stored. Okay, and dynamic process property is a process level property, and process property is a account level property. So these two properties will behave in a similar way when they are catching any document values. Dynamic process property and process property will behave in a similar way. Both of them are like process properties, and process property is also a account level property because it is a component. It is a component, that's why we are saying it as a account level property, and it is a process level property also because the name itself says process property and dynamic process property. Both these are process level properties, and process property is also a account level property. Why? Because it is a component. Once the component has been created, we can use that component in any of the processes. That's why we are calling it as an account level property. That's it. Okay, so see here, they are catching last document values. What is the last record in all the three? What is the last record? Last record is Divya with ID 30. Okay, so see the result. So we'll see for the second record. What is the property values that has been stored for the second record? So for the second record, dynamic document property is 20. Okay, this is a document level property, right? That's why it stored dynamic document property value as 20. When it comes to the dynamic process property and process property, the value is 30 only. Every time it will be 30 because it is a process level property. So what these dynamic process property and process property will do is like, for example, if you are getting a 10 records, okay, so they will catch the last records value. They will catch the last records value. Here we are getting 3 records. So what is the last records value? 30. So these properties will catch the last records value. But dynamic document property will catches each and every record's individual values. Okay, that's why we call it as a document level property. Okay, the value of the dynamic document property will be there until the end of that particular document. Okay, let me add that point over here. The value will exist until the end of the document. So the value will be exist until the end of this document. Okay, let's see how that in order to justify that particular condition, we will see a simple scenario. Okay, we will see a simple scenario. Let me take a branch over here. Branch. Do you know how this branch is going to work? Branch works, it is a simple shape. Okay, there is nothing to configure. So the maximum number of branches that we can use is 25. You can see that number over here. Okay, and it will send the message to this multiple paths. Okay, so and the only thing that you need to remember is like it will send the values in a sequential manner. Sequential manner in the sense, the first branch will be executed first and the second branch, and if you are having third branch, then it will be executed third. So once the first branch has been executed successfully, then it will send the documents to the second branch. Likewise, it will work. It works completely based on sequential executions. Okay, so see here, now what we are doing here, we are just using a branch over here, and we are sending these set properties. I mean, and we are sending data to the first branch, and in the first branch you are defining the set properties. Where you are defining, we are defining it in the first branch, and when you are defining it in the first branch, what dynamic document property says, dynamic document property will exist until the end of the document. So here you are defining that property, and what is the end of the document? This is the end of the document. So dynamic document property value will be retrieved only in this branch. Why? Because you are defining it here. Okay, you are defining it here in the first branch, so that's why you can retrieve that value only in the first branch. You can't retrieve that value in the second branch. Let's see that. Let me execute this. Okay, first record 10 30 30. Okay, the same follows for the second and third records also. So now see the resultant in the second branch. So see here, what is the dynamic document property value? It is null. But dynamic process property and process property values 30 30 because they are process level properties. Okay, so this value exists until the end of the document. So what is the end of the document? What is the end of the property? You are defining that property over here. That property will exist until the end of this document. Here the document is ending, and again branch is sending same set of documents to the second branch, where you haven't set any document property, dynamic document property in this process. But we are seeing the dynamic process property and process property because they are process level properties. You can set anywhere. Okay, if you set a dynamic process property or process property, you can call these property values anywhere. But dynamic document property will exist until the end of the document. That means you can call it in that document flow only. Okay, you can call it. That means you can call this property. That means you can call this property only in that flow. Only in that flow where it defined. Okay, but when it comes to the dynamic process property, you can call this property anywhere in the process once it got defined. Okay, the same thing works for process property also. Okay, once the property has defined, you can call it anywhere. So that this is one of the difference that we are having for dynamic process property, dynamic document property. So for example, if you are setting this property over here before the branch, if you are setting it over here, then how it is going to work? So see here now. Now you are getting dynamic document property, process property, dynamic process property. Why? Because you are defining it before the branch. If you are defining it in the branch one, then this is the end of the document. But when you are defining it before the branch, then the same flow is flowing through the first branch and second branch, right? So you can catch it here and here as well. Okay. And now we will see about the other points what we have defined. We have seen this point, and we have seen this point also. It is a document level property, process property, and why we are calling it as an account level property. We have seen that also, because it is a component, and it is a process level property, and it is a document level property because you can retrieve that value only at the document level. Okay, we have seen that difference. Now we will see about the persist. Okay, persist. So here, when it comes to the persist, is there any possibility to persist this value? No, but let me check here. Is there any value to persist this value? Yes, we can persist this value. There is an option available. You just need to check the checkbox. And same for process property also. Okay, there is an option available here to persist the property. You can check this checkbox over here. Now, so now what we need to do, let me use this over here instead of. So what we are doing as of now, we are just calling the values once it has been defined. Okay, once it has been defined, we are calling that. But is there any possibility? Is there any possibility to call these values before defining? Before defining itself, is there any possibility to call these values? See here. Okay. So this is the branch one. If you try to call these values before here, is there any possibility to get those values? Let me test that. You already persisted these two properties. Okay, you already persisted. You already checked the checkbox. Now let's see. Test. See the resultant. What we did, we tried to retrieve the values before setting that. Before setting those properties, we are trying to do that. See, it is null for all the three. And once we set that property over here, once we set that property over here, now the resultant here is like, you can see the dynamic process property and process property in the second branch, but you won't see the dynamic document property. But in the first branch, you will see all three, right? So dynamic process property and process property values will be stored somewhere in the cloud, okay, where that runtime engine is running. Then what it will do, if you want to use that value in the next execution, you can get those values. See here. Now let me test it again. So the values that got stored in the previous execution will be retrieved in the current execution. See here. So you got those values, right? See here, process property and dynamic process property. So these properties will be stored in the cloud where that runtime engine is running, and that values will be retrieved in the next execution, and you can use those values before defining the set properties. So here we are defining, or here we are setting the set properties. But before setting the set property value only, we are retrieving, we are getting the values from the previous execution stored values. Okay, understand all of you? Are you understand? Is it fine for you, the point which we discussed now?
Yeah, okay. Yes, understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So this you may ask, okay, this is fine, but what is the real-time scenario that we can use this persist value? Let me tell you a simple real-time scenario. Okay, let us take a simple condition. I want to run my process. I want to run my process. Okay, I want to run my process. If my last run date is 7 days before, okay, 7 days before to the current date. For example, today is Saturday. If my process has run on Saturday, previous Saturday, then my process needs to be run. If my process didn't run on previous Saturday, now my process not required to run. So how you can get that information? How you can get that information? So what you need to do is like, you need to set, you need to set, you need to set dynamic process property DDP hyphen D date. Okay, sorry, it is not DDP. Dynamic process property hyphen D, that means date. You're just catching a date. Okay, let me time out date, which is like current data time, current date, and it is in the format of mmddy relative date. So I'm just catching it 7 days minus 7 days and before 7 days. Okay, okay. So you are just catching a date which is minus 7 days, and now you can use a decision over here. You can use a decision over here to check the dynamic process property dpp hyphen d dpp hyphen d is equal to the date or time. Enter. Sorry, mmddy relative date. If that date is equal to the minus 7 days. Okay, if the property stored should be is equal to this value, then it has to be run, else it is not supposed to run. Actually, here we need to use the current date. This is not relative date, we need to use the current date. But why I am using, in order to explain this, because this process hasn't run on last Saturday, right? So that's why I just manipulated it over here. But this condition is same. Here you need to use the same condition. Okay, let me use this decision over here. If this condition satisfies, then it has to go through the true path. If that condition doesn't satisfy, then it has to go to the false path. It is not supposed to execute this process. If there is any requirement like this, then we can use this implementation. And here for example, sorry, here we forgot to persist this property. Okay, save test. First time it won't consider because this is the first execution. There is no value to compare. There is no value to compare, and it will goes to the false path. See here, it went to the false path. You can check the logs also. Okay, so the date is 11/27/2021. Okay, but there is no property value. Property value is null. Parameter one value is equal to null. Now let me execute it again. Oh, still it is going to this path. Sorry, it hasn't executed not even once, right? Let me execute this first the first time once. Then we will check that condition. Test. Now this property value has been set. You can check that, see 11/27/2021. Now you can use this condition. That value is already stored. That is already stored in the persist. That is already stored in the runtime engine. And we are just again using the same value. See, now it is executing. And please check the logs whether it is taking that condition or not. Okay, it is taking that condition. And so every time it will check whether the process has executed before 7 days or not in this decision. And if it is executed, then it will execute the process. If it is not executed, then the date is beyond 7 days. It is more than 7 days. Then at that time, the process won't execute. It will stop here at the false. Okay, got it? Let me show you one more scenario. So it is not 7 days. For example, the process is executed 14 days back. Okay, if the process is executed and in the current execution, the value will be persisted. It will come here and it will store that particular value. Okay. And what is the value that it is storing? 11/20/2021. Okay. And in the next execution, it will check for that value. Okay. What is the last execution date? Okay. If the last execution date is greater than 7 days, if it is more than 7 days, then it will stop here in the false path. You can check the logs over here. Okay. See, it is 11/20/21, but it is 11/27. Okay. So is not equal. These two dates are not equal. So the process is stopping here. It is sending data to the false path. So this is one of the real-time implementation. You can use this in based on the requirement. Not only here, you can use in any of the implementations, but the business scenarios may change. Okay. So we have seen about the persist also. Okay. Why this is not persist, why we can't persist this, because there is no option to persist this value, but we have a checkbox to persist dynamic process property and process property. And when it comes to the component, we have directly seen that. See here, properties, there is, you can see that process property over here in the component explorer. The value that you are seeing in the component explorer, that is nothing but it is a component, but you can't see a component for dynamic process property and process property. That's what we mentioned over here. These two are not components, but this is a component. Okay, so this is the difference that we are having between these three properties. Okay, it is very important because regarding these three properties, please try to understand. And I told you, I'll just explain the properties over here in the map functions also. Okay, so what you can do is like you can use in the same way properties, get process properties, set, get document property, get the way how you define the properties over here in the set property shape. In the similar way, you can set it over here. You can set it or you can call them over here. Okay, so please practice that. Okay, if you are facing any difficulties while calling those properties over here in the map functions, please let me know. I'll just let you know. Okay, I'll just let you know how to do that. So this is all about the properties. Okay, and you can use these properties in the conditional shapes also. For a simple example, I just explained about the decision. I just used the decision. You might have not completely understand about the decision. Okay, tomorrow we will see about all the conditional shapes like decision, route, and business rules. These are very important. These are also very important. So now we'll just discuss about them in our tomorrow session. Okay, so Thank you all. Thanks for joining. If you're having any doubts, you can stay here or else you can drop off.
Tomorrow Sunday, no? So we'll continue tomorrow or day after tomorrow?
No, we'll
Is it
continue
okay to
tomorrow. Yeah, we'll continue because we
Yeah.
are having we need to complete it because last week also we have taken around 3 to 4 days off, right? So we'll continue. No problem.
Oh, okay.
Please inform to
Yeah,
the
then not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone, tomorrow also session available, so please join at the same time.
Thank you.